For over 3,000 years, all of Israel, we, the Israelites, the true Israelites, for over 3,000 years, whether Orthodox, Karaite, Samaritan, Ethiopian, Lemba, Yemenites, all of us, as a whole, have always kept the original true Shabbat, the real Sabbath, throughout history. Later on in history, outsiders came along and said, no, the Jews are wrong. Israel's wrong. The Sabbath is a lunar Sabbath. It's not on the seventh day. You don't know what you're talking about. We're going to tell you what the Sabbath is. Brothers and sisters, here is the full presentation. I'm going to give you the 10 major reasons why the lunar Sabbath is absolute falsehood and not biblical. We are going to look to the scriptures alone to show that the lunar Sabbath is not 100% literal biblical truth. But the true Sabbath, the true Shabbat, which Israel has kept for over 3,000 years, is the words of God versus the words of men. Reason number one. The Tanakh says work is done on the first day of the new moon, which is the lunar Shabbat, according to these outsiders who follow the lunar calendar, the lunar Sabbath. They say that the first sighting, the first day of the new moon, is the Sabbath, according to them. Let's take a look at the scriptures to see what happens on the first day of the new moon. Genesis chapter 8, verse 13. And it came to pass in the 600th and first year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth, and Noah removed the covering off the ark. He removed, this is an act of work, of melacha, of doing something physically stressful, doing work. And looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. Exodus chapter 40, verse 17. And it came to pass in the first month, in the second year, on the first day of the month, that the tabernacle was reared up. So on that day, the tabernacle was reared up, put together. That's an act of melacha, work. Numbers chapter 1, verse 1. And Yehovah spoke unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tabernacle of the congregation, on the first day of the second month, in the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt. Numbers chapter 33, verse 38. And Aaron the priest went up into Mount Hor at the commandment of Yehovah, and died there in the 40th year after the children of Israel came out of the land of Egypt, in the first day of the 5th month, traveling. We also see examples in Ezra chapter 7, verse 9. You can see for yourself, for upon the first day of the first month began he to go up from Babylon, traveling again, which is forbidden on Shabbat. And on the first day of the 5th month came he to Jerusalem, 2 separate first days of the month, traveling. Not only is Noah, as we saw earlier, working on the first day of the month, but all other verses that I mentioned has to do with work, traveling, and so on. No mention that they were keeping Shabbat on the first day. That's number one. Reason number two, Shabbat is calculated by phases of the moon, according to them, not by counting 1 through 7, according to Israel, we the real Jews. They say no, it's based on the lunar Shabbat. So they say no, we do not count 1 through 7. Most of the lunar preachers and messianic teachers do agree that the Sabbath is not calculated by counting 1 through 6 and then declaring the Sabbath on the 7th day. Let's see what Scripture, the words of God, say contrary to these claims. Exodus chapter 16, verse 26. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Shabbat, Sabbath, in it there shall be no work. Exodus chapter 20, verse 9 and 10. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yehovah your Elohim. Exodus chapter 20, verse 11. For in 6 days Yehovah made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the 7th day. Exodus chapter 23, verse 12. 6 days, on and on and on. 6 days you shall do all your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest. Exodus 31 verse 15. 6 days may work be done, but on the 7th is a Sabbath of rest, holy to Yehovah. Exodus chapter 34 verse 21. 6 days you shall work, but on the 7th day thou shalt rest. Exodus 35 verse 2. Again, over and over and over. 6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th day there shall be a holy day, a Sabbath of rest to Yehovah. Leviticus 23 verse 3. The same message. Deuteronomy chapter 5 verses 13 through 14, Also in Ezekiel chapter 46 verse 1. It says, "Thus says Yehovah God, the gate of the inner court that looks toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be opened." And separate from that, and we're going to go into the days which lead up to Shabbat, and separate the annual feast days, holy days. And in the day of the new moon, which is separate time, it shall be opened. Again, 1 through 6, 7th day, Sabbath, holy. If the Sabbath is never to be calculated as the 7th day after counting off the 6 working days before it, then why, I ask, are there so many Tanakh passages saying just what I just mentioned? In the creation week itself, let's take a look at what it says, the creation itself. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 2 through 3, listen carefully. "And on the 7th day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which he had made." Reason number 3, the term Shabbat of Yehovah proves they are in error, meaning the Lunar Sabbath believers. There are 4 places in the Tanakh where the term Shabbat or Sabbath of Yehovah is used. Exodus chapter 20 verse 10 says, "But the 7th day is a Shabbat to Yehovah, your God. In it you shall do no work." Leviticus chapter 23 verse 3, 6 days. 6 days. Work shall be done. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yehovah. Leviticus chapter 23 verse 38, "Beside the Sabbaths of Yehovah, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides your freewill offerings, which you give unto Yehovah." Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 14, "But the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yehovah, your God, and you shall not do any work." You shall do no work, period. Reason number 4, the word Shabbat in Leviticus chapter 23 is a problem. It says in verse 3, 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yehovah in all of your dwellings. Period. There is one distinguishing feature of the way the word Shabbat is used in Leviticus chapter 23 that all lunar preachers seem to ignore. In Leviticus chapter 23 verse 3, when it speaks of the weekly Sabbath, it uses the exact same word of the 4th commandment when speaking of the Sabbath of Yehovah. The word in the Hebrew word is Shabbat for Sabbath. Okay? However, in Leviticus chapter 23 verse 24 and verse 39, when speaking of the feast day, the holy days, or annual Shabbat or Sabbath, it uses the word Shabbaton in Hebrew, which is a plural. Okay? 2 different words are used here, and no one seems to have picked up on this. None of the Lunar Sabbath believers. This fact alone proves the weekly Sabbath. And the feast day Sabbaths are 2 different types of Sabbaths altogether. One is to be held after 6 literal days, and the other is dictated by the annual holy days, feast days. Reason number 5. that manna was gathered for 6 literal days. Remember that? Exodus chapter 16, verse 26. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none, meaning in your camps. Exodus chapter 16, verse 35. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years until they came to the land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. Each and every week for 40 years they were taught to work 6 days and then rest on the 7th day, the Sabbath, Shabbat. Not one time was the moon ever mentioned throughout the Torah in these events. In all of the 40 years, not once was the lunar Sabbath ever mentioned. Why not? Because it's not biblical truth. It was never true. Reason number 6. The creation week exposes the lunar Sabbath error as well. Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through 19 says, God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Let them be for lights in the dome of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made the 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. Night. To rule the night. Not to rule the Sabbath. To rule the night of the same day. He made the stars also. That's it. That's the rest of the whole galaxy, for those of you who believe in the globe. And then he made the stars. That's it. Even though there's billions and billions of galaxies. But we won't go there, right? Of course, we don't want to go there. And God set them in the dome of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. There was evening and there was morning, 4th day. Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all of the host of them. And on the 7th day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. The lunar preachers declare the moon dictates the start of the Sabbath. However, the moon, which is the lesser light to rule the night, was created on day 4. Once again, the moon, which is the lesser light to rule the night, was created on day 4. The Sabbath was created on day 7. Do you get it? Do you get it? Very, very clear. There is no question. There is no debunking this. It's that easy to see on this one. Nowhere in the creation week or on day 7, when God rested, do we see the moon in any phase being mentioned, ever, regarding the sanctification of the 7th day. In short, it's simply not there. Reason number 7. Commandment number 4 confirms the lunar Sabbath is complete error, complete falsehood. Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11. Listen carefully. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of Yehovah to your God. If you notice Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11, it explains the proper method of calculating the Sabbath. 6 literal working days. It's very, very clear. And then the 7th day is a Sabbath of Yehovah. To Yehovah was to be kept. It is very, very clear. Reason number 8. Notice the following verses that I will read. You will see that there is not a single instance, and this is just a handful, wherein the Sabbath and the moon are connected. 0. However, as you go through these passages, you will see that the moon is in fact associated with Baal worship. Many times in Scripture. You'll see that connection, but not the lunar Sabbath. Let's take a look. Genesis chapter 37, verse 9. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it to his brothers, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me, bowed to me, worshipped me. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 19. Lest you lift up your eyes unto heaven. You see this, the sun, the moon, and the stars, even the hosts of heaven, and you should be driven to worship them or to serve them, which Yahweh your God has divided unto all the nations under the whole heavens. Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 3. And have gone and served other gods and worshipped them, either the sun or moon or any of the hosts of heaven, which I have not commanded you. Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 14. And for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things brought forth by the moon. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 5. And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the 3rd day at even. No Sabbath connection there. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 18. Then Jonathan said to David, Tomorrow is the new moon. You shall be missed, because your seat will be empty. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 24. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon had come, the king sat down with them to eat meat. There's many other passages. One in particular is 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 23. The same continuous thing. Note that Psalms 81, verse 3, Sabbath mentioned here is an annual or feast day Sabbath, just as it describes. Reason number 9. According to Yahweh, the moon was appointed for seasons. God himself says this. Let's take a look. Psalms 104, verse 19. He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knows his going down. If the moon was appointed for the Sabbath, according to the Lunar Sabbath believers, as the lunar preachers teach, Yehovah would never have penned Psalm 104, verse 19 in this way. He should have said he made the moon or appointed the moon for the Sabbath, as well as seasons, as well as holy days. It's not there. Reason number 10. Final reason here. Some lunar preachers claim Leviticus 23 is speaking of all 12 months, but it only speaks of 2. This is their claim. But let's see what the Word of God says. According to some lunar preachers, it is believed that the Leviticus is the crux for the weekly Sabbath for all 12 months. But how is my question? How? I ask, is this possible when Leviticus 23 only covers month 1 and month 7? Let's take a look. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 5. In the 14th day of the 1st month, at even is Yahweh's Passover. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 24. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall you have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 27. Also in the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you, and you shall afflict your souls, and offer an offering made by fire unto Yehovah. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 34. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the feast of tabernacles for 7 days unto Yehovah. Leviticus 23, verse 39. Also the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the fruit of the land, you shall keep the feast unto Yehovah 7 days. On the 1st day shall be a Shabbat, and on the 8th day shall be the Sabbath. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 41. You shall keep it a feast unto Yehovah 7 days in the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. If the weekly 7th day Shabbat is to be dictated by that which is penned in Leviticus chapter 23, according to them, then how is it Leviticus chapter 23 only speaks of feast days in month 1 and then later in month 7? What happened? Where, I ask? are the instructions for month 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Where are they? Speak up, Lunar Sabbath believers. Where are they? No, my brothers and sisters, this is complete falsehood. If in fact Leviticus chapter 23 is our annual guide for all 12 months of the year, according to them, there's a big problem. Are we to believe that Yehovah, our God, forgot to mention these months somehow? Is that what we're supposed to believe? God just had a problem remembering this? Nonsense. No,